Mom kicked me out when she had new kids with my stepdad, then showed up demanding money for their college. When I refused, she stalked me until I got a restraining order and she was arrested. I still don't know what stings more, the fact that she kicked me out like I was a stranger, or that she came back years later expecting me to pay for the kids she replaced me with. I'm 29 now, doing all right in life, but this whole thing started when I was just 14. Back then, my mom had been remarried for about a year to a guy named Carl. Carl was one of those men who smiles like a pastor and glares like a prison warden when no one's looking. He was fake nice, said things like sport and buddy to me, but I always felt like he was trying to push me out of the picture. I think he saw me as a threat to his perfect family vision. I was just a quiet kid. I liked drawing, listening to music, and staying out of the way. But after she had her first kid with Carl, a little girl named Elsie, things started to change. The attention was gone. The patience vanished. I remember asking her once if she could come to my art show at school. She looked exhausted and said, "You're old enough to go by yourself. I have a baby now." That was the first time I felt invisible in my own home. By the time she had their second child, a boy named Luke, it was obvious. I wasn't part of the family anymore. My room was slowly filled with baby stuff. I was expected to help, babysit, keep quiet when they were napping, and be grateful you have a roof over your head. When I turned 16, things got worse. I got a part-time job to save for college. Carl started making comments like, "Aren't you old enough to move out already?" And I guess Mom agreed. One night, after an argument about me not taking Luke to his soccer practice, I had a shift. She told me to pack my things and go stay with my dad. Except, my dad wasn't in the picture. He was barely paying child support and lived halfway across the country. I had nowhere to go. So yeah, I couch surfed. I crashed at friends' places. Sometimes I slept in my car when I got one. I worked 2 jobs. No birthday calls, no check-ins, no "Are you okay?" from her. Nothing. I was wiped from her life like a bad memory. I spent years telling myself it didn't matter, that I was stronger without her. Fast forward to a few months ago. I'm living in a decent apartment. I've got a good job in IT, a fiancé, and a golden retriever who thinks he owns the couch. Life was stable, peaceful. Then, out of nowhere, she shows up. Literally. One Saturday morning, there's a knock on my door. I open it and there she is standing on my doorstep like she hadn't ghosted me for over a decade. Her face was full of this weird mix of smugness and fake sadness. "Oh honey," she said, "you've grown so much. You look just like your father." I should have slammed the door. I knew better. But I froze. My fiancé came to the door, confused, and I introduced her awkwardly and she invited my mom in. I didn't say no. Big mistake. She sat on our couch like she owned the place. Started talking about how things had been hard and how she regretted how we drifted apart. I didn't say much. I just listened. Then came the real reason she was there. So, Elsie's graduating high school next spring. She's really smart. She got into a great private college, but the tuition's insane. I know you're doing well, and I figured you could help. Just a little. Family supports family, right? I laughed. Out loud. I wasn't trying to be cruel. It just hit me how surreal it all was. This woman who abandoned me, erased me from her life, and made it very clear I was disposable was now sitting on my couch asking me to fund her new family's future? When I told her no very calmly, by the way, her entire face changed. The sweet tone dropped. The eyes narrowed. She said, "So that's it? You'd let your own sister suffer just to punish me?" My sister? I hadn't seen the girl since she was in diapers. I barely knew her. "I'm not her brother," I said. "You made the choice a long time ago." She stormed out. I thought that was the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. After that door slammed shut, I thought I just dodged an awkward moment, that she'd vanish the way she always had. I underestimated just how far she'd go when her ego got bruised. The next day, I started getting texts from unknown numbers. Not just from her. From family members I hadn't spoken to in years. An aunt who never even sent me a birthday card was suddenly in my inbox saying things like, "Your mother has made mistakes, but helping your siblings with college isn't about her, it's about being a good man. You're lucky to be where you are. Don't forget who raised you." Rage isn't even the word. These were people who said nothing when I was sleeping in my car. People who didn't so much as send a $20 bill in a Christmas card when I was skipping meals to make rent. Now suddenly they're coming out of the woodwork because I won't pay $50,000 a year for someone else's kid? I blocked them all. That's when the real harassment began. First, she started calling. Not just once or twice. Dozens of times. Every day. I wouldn't pick up. Then came voicemails, some crying, some angry, some passive-aggressive nonsense about how I was being manipulated by that woman, my fiancée, apparently. Then she started showing up. Not just at my apartment, at my job. One day I came down from lunch and she was in the damn lobby waiting. I walked past her like she was a stranger. She called after me loud enough for the front desk staff to hear, "Don't pretend you don't know me, I'm your mother." Security had to walk her out. At this point, my fiancée was freaking out. She told me we needed to involve the police. I hesitated. I didn't want this to become some big legal battle. Part of me still thought maybe she'd cool off. Instead, she doubled down. She started calling my fiancé's workplace. Told her receptionist that she was concerned for her son's well-being. Said my fiancé was controlling me, isolating me, and might be emotionally abusing me. Let me be clear, I've never been the kind of man to cry in public. I bottle things up like a damn professional. But that week, I hit a wall. I broke down in our kitchen one night, just sobbing. Not because I was scared of her, but because this woman chose to be a monster and now expected me to still play the grateful son. She hadn't asked how I was doing. Not once. It wasn't about reconnecting. It was about using me. I filed a police report the next morning. The cops couldn't do much at first. They took note, told me to document everything, and basically gave me the standard keep your distance talk. But the paper trail started. She kept escalating. I got emails, physical letters. One letter was handwritten and 8 pages long, full of religious guilt, emotional blackmail, and twisted retellings of my childhood like she was rewriting history. In her version, I abandoned her. She said things like, "You have no idea how hard I worked for you. Carl wanted to kick you out sooner, and I fought for you." She wrote that I owe the family for ruining the harmony of her new marriage when I was a teen. I started seeing her car outside our place. Not every day. Just enough to make me question myself. Was I imagining it? Was I being paranoid? My fiancé noticed it too. One night, I was walking our dog around the block when I saw her across the street, parked with the lights off, just watching. That was the last straw. I gathered everything, screenshots of texts, photos of her car near our building, voicemails, call logs, the letter, even the HR report from my job. I went to court and filed for a restraining order. She didn't even try to deny it. At the hearing, she went full victim mode. Said she was a desperate mother trying to reconnect with her son. Said she just wanted what's best for the family. But the judge saw right through it. When I played the voicemails, the one where she said, "If you think you can erase me from your life and get away with it, watch me," her mask dropped. The judge granted a full restraining order on the spot. She broke it 2 weeks later. She left a note on my windshield that just said, "This isn't over. Family is forever." That's when the police arrested her. Seeing her in handcuffs wasn't satisfying. It wasn't cathartic. It just felt gross. She looked at me while they were putting her in the back of the squad car, and for a second, I swear I saw that same look she gave me when I was 16, the night she kicked me out. No remorse. No sadness. Just a twisted mix of irritation and contempt, like I was the one inconveniencing her. I didn't go to the arraignment. My lawyer handled it. I didn't need to be in the room to know exactly how it played out, crocodile tears, dramatics, the concerned mother script. But this time, she couldn't lie her way out of it. The judge had seen the proof. She was charged with violating a protective order, criminal harassment, and trespassing. And of course, the moment the arrest hit, the family exploded. I got a text from my aunt, the same one who lectured me about doing the right thing, saying I had humiliated my mother and broken her spirit. She accused me of dragging the family name through the mud. Meanwhile, my cousin, who actually had my back through this whole thing, messaged me. "Dude, your mom is telling people you made up fake evidence. That your fiancé manipulated you into filing charges. That you're having some sort of mental breakdown. Apparently, she crafted this narrative where I was unstable and easily influenced, just like she used to say about me as a kid whenever I questioned Carl's behavior or didn't fall in line. Classic gaslight and destroy tactics. Somehow she still had allies. Her church, mostly. One of their members sent me an actual letter, not an email, a handwritten letter telling me I should repent for turning against my mother and that no child succeeds in life without the blessing of their parents. I laughed when I read that one. And then I cried. Not because it hurt, but because I realized how many people will blindly side with abusers as long as they cry loud enough and say the right words. But the worst part? The trial. I wasn't planning to speak. My lawyer said my documentation spoke for itself. But the prosecutor asked me if I'd give a statement about the emotional impact. I agreed. Standing there in court, I said something like this, and I remember it almost word for word. When I was a teenager, this woman chose a new family and made it very clear I was no longer wanted. She didn't call to check on me. Didn't ask if I had food. Didn't care when I was sleeping in cars or working double shifts at 16. She abandoned me. And now, years later, she's back not to say she's sorry, not to fix anything, but to demand something from me. To manipulate, stalk, and harass me when I don't give it. That's not love. That's abuse dressed up in family language. And I refuse to let it continue. She didn't look at me once during the whole statement. Not a glance. The court sentenced her to 90 days of house arrest, 2 years probation, and mandatory counseling. Not jail time, which I was okay with. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. I wanted her out of my life. After that, the noise died down a bit. The texts from extended family faded. My fiancée changed her number. We moved to a new apartment with a secured building and underground parking. I started therapy, something I'd avoided for a long time because I always thought I could handle it myself. Turns out years of emotional neglect, rejection, and forced self-reliance don't just fade when you get older. They sit there like rot under a floorboard until you finally rip the panels up and look. Therapy helped me stop blaming myself. Because here's the thing no one tells you: when you grow up with a toxic parent, you internalize their behavior. You think you were the problem. That if you'd just been quieter, or more obedient, or less difficult, maybe they would have loved you. Maybe they wouldn't have left. But no. That's not how love works. That's not how family works. And if anyone reading this has a parent who only calls when they want something, who only remembers you exist when you're useful, let me tell you something loud and clear. You owe them nothing. Not your time. Not your money. Not your peace. Especially not your guilt. I wish I could say things instantly got better after the court case. That I walked away from the courtroom lighter, free, and full of peace. But the truth? Healing doesn't work like that. What really happened was this weird emotional whiplash. For years, I'd been in fight or flight mode. First, trying to survive as a teenager on my own. Then, trying to stay sane while being stalked by the same woman who called herself my mother. Once it was legally over, the adrenaline just stopped. And when it did, everything hit me at once. I had spent so many years pretending her absence didn't hurt. I told people, it's fine, we're just not close. I joked, at least I don't have to visit her for the holidays. I said things like, some people just aren't meant to be parents, as if I was totally above it. But I wasn't fine. I wasn't above it. I was hollow in places I didn't even realize were empty until someone finally listened without judgment. That someone was my therapist. Her name was Dana. I remember during our first session, I told her the entire story like it was a Netflix drama, calm, clean, almost like I was reading it off a teleprompter. She waited until I was done, then leaned in and said, "Can I ask you something blunt?" I nodded. She said, "How long have you believed you were disposable?" That hit me harder than anything my mother ever said. Because the truth was, since I was a teenager, I did believe that. I believed love was conditional. That if I wasn't convenient, I'd be tossed. That I had to earn kindness. That I wasn't worthy of affection unless I proved myself useful. And that belief bled into everything: friendships, work, even my relationship. I found myself over-apologizing, constantly seeking reassurance, trying to be low maintenance because I didn't want to be too much. My fiancé once said, "Why do you always brace like you're about to be punished when you tell me something hard?" I didn't even realize I was doing that. Therapy helped. Not in the one session and I'm cured kind of way, more like one layer at a time. One memory at a time. One painful realization at a time. I talked about the time I had a fever as a kid and my mom still made me go to school because she couldn't afford another missed day at work. About how I won an award for art and she missed the ceremony because she had more important things to do. About how I used to leave notes on the fridge asking her to wake me up for school because I didn't want to be late and get in trouble again. Dana didn't pity me. She just saw me. And that alone started to shift something inside me. We talked a lot about boundaries, not just setting them but believing I deserve to have them. That it's okay to say no. That I don't need to justify my peace. That I don't owe anyone access to my life just because we share blood. And I'll be honest, some of the hardest parts weren't even about my mom. They were about grieving the family I wanted to have. The kind where holidays aren't a battlefield. Where "I love you" isn't followed by guilt trips or manipulation. Where your success isn't met with bitterness or jealousy. I had to mourn something I never really had. During this time, my fiancée was incredible. She gave me space when I needed it, support when I crumbled, and called me out gently when I tried to pretend everything was back to normal. One night, I told her I was scared. That I was afraid that no matter how much I healed, a part of me would always be broken. That I'd never be able to fully let people in without expecting them to leave. She looked me in the eyes and said, "You're not broken. You were just never protected. That changed me. That was the moment I realized I wasn't healing into someone new. I was healing back into who I was supposed to be before all the damage. The kid who loved art. The boy who wanted to be hugged without strings attached. The young man who didn't think love had to be earned through suffering. I started journaling, reading more, even picked up sketching again, something I hadn't done in over a decade. It felt clumsy at first, but it was mine. No pressure. No judgment. I also made a list in my journal. People I don't owe anything to just because they're family. It had names. Hers, obviously. A few aunts. One cousin who said I was just doing this for attention. And beside that list, I made a second one. People who earned their place in my life. It had far fewer names. But they were real. Chosen. Safe. I always thought going no contact would be this dramatic, movie-level scene where I deliver some mic drop line and walk away into the sunset. But in real life, it was quieter. Smaller. More permanent. It happened over coffee. A few months after the trial, I was having a check-in session with Dana, my therapist. I was telling her about another round of messages I'd gotten, not from my mom since the restraining order held, but from mutual family members who still bought into her version of the story. A couple of cousins were now sending blessings and praying I'd come back to the family. An aunt messaged me a Bible verse about forgiveness. Classic. Dana looked at me and said, you know, you don't need to keep the door cracked for people just because they share a last name. And I don't know why, but that hit me. Like I'd been walking around with this open door, just waiting for someone from that side of the family to come through and make it all okay. Say the magic words. Admit they were wrong. Tell me they saw me now. But they weren't coming. Not really. So that night, I sat down, phone in hand, and started clearing my contact list. One by one. Not blocking out of anger, just deleting. Cleaning house. I got rid of numbers I hadn't used in years but kept just in case. I took old photos off the fridge. I went through my social media and unfollowed every relative who tried to guilt me or stood by silently while she went off the rails. I wasn't just cutting them out, I was cutting myself out of the role they'd cast me in. The role of the bitter son, the ungrateful child, the lost cause. I was done playing it. A week later, my cousin Sam reached out. Now Sam and I hadn't talked in almost 10 years. He was always quiet, kind of caught in the middle. But apparently he'd been watching everything unfold, the court stuff, the family drama, all of it. He asked to meet for lunch. I was hesitant, but I agreed. When we sat down, he didn't waste time. He said, I just wanted to tell you. I saw it. I saw what she did. We all did. Some of us just didn't know what to do about it. Then he told me something I didn't expect. Back when I got kicked out, he had tried to ask my mom why. He was only 13 at the time. She told him I was acting out and refused to be part of the new family. He said he always felt that explanation didn't sit right, but he was just a kid. Now, as an adult, he realized he'd stayed silent too long. He apologized. Not just for himself, but for all the voices that never spoke up when I needed them to. For all the people who believed her because it was easier than asking questions. I won't lie, I cried. Not because I needed his validation, but because it was the first time anyone from my old world had acknowledged what really happened. No excuses. No guilt tripping. Just truth. We talked for hours. And something in me softened, not toward my mother, not toward the toxic side of the family, but toward myself. It was the first time I allowed myself to believe I hadn't imagined it all. That the pain was real and it wasn't my fault. Later that week, something else happened, something that proved how far I'd come. I got a message on LinkedIn from a woman I didn't recognize. Turned out it was a friend of my mother's from church. She said she'd heard the family had fallen apart and wanted to hear my side. Instead of engaging, I deleted it. No anger. No snark. Just silence. Because that's the thing I've learned, not every truth needs to be defended. Not every lie needs to be refuted. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, not out of defeat, but because you've finally realized your peace matters more than being understood. That silence? It's not emptiness. It's clarity. And the ripple effects didn't stop there. My fiancée told me she noticed a shift in me. That I seemed lighter. More rooted. I was sleeping better. Laughing more. Saying no without flinching. She also told me she'd started therapy, not because of me, but because seeing me take that step gave her the push to deal with some of her own childhood stuff. That hit me hard. I spent years believing I was emotionally damaged goods. But here I was not just healing, but inspiring healing in someone else. That's when it hit me. Breaking cycles is loud in your head, but quiet in real life. It looks like boundaries. Like saying no and meaning it. Like deleting a number and not second-guessing it. Like choosing peace over drama, clarity over chaos. It looks like freedom.